Hi, I'm Dan Donahue, Principal Solutions Architect at Nethopper. In my last video, I showed you how simple it was to form an application network. In this video, I'm going to show you how simple it is to deploy applications to that network. Let's go to the SaaS. So here you can see the network is up and running. We have our hub cluster and we have our two edge clusters. One running in Amazon, one running in Google. Both of those clusters are tagged as edge, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. Now, before deploying applications, you need to make sure that you've added a repository that contains manifests on how to deploy that application. We'll point Argo to that repo. It will scrape that repo, the directory in which the application it is, and form an application set in which we can manage the application distribution, therefore hiding the complexities of ArgoCD for you. You don't need to really upskill yourself on the intricacies and the complexities of Argo. We handle that all for you. And in this demo, I have this Cloud Deploy repo. Now again, Cloudflow is a fictional company I use for demo purposes. And in this deploy repo, which here is the link right here, and you can go to that link and you can, it's a public repository. You can see the example apps in there. And here's the guestbook app, which we'll deploy today. You can see there are two YAML files in there. One is a deployment and one is a service. So two Kubernetes objects. So we're going to add this directory into our applications. So the way we would do that is we would create an application, we give it a name, and you can call it whatever you want. I'll just call it guestbook. And to configure the repository, I will select that repository I just showed you. I'm going to use it out of the main branch, and the path in there was that guestbook directory. And I'm going to install it in a default namespace on the edge clusters. And I'm going to give it a tag. And I'm going to tag this one edge, which is the same as my cluster for simplicity reasons, which you'll see next. And once I save that, the application is now being managed by the platform. Now, this application hasn't been deployed anywhere, because if it were, you would see every deployment nested under this application name, which we'll see in a minute. And the reason why it's not deployed anywhere is we don't have any distribution rule. A distribution rule is simply, just as it sounds, a distribution rule or a policy by which we match application tags and cluster tags and distribute applications based on how you create those rules. So let's create a simple rule that says all objects match in this. An object is just a Kubernetes object, an application. In this case, we know there's a deployment and there's a Kubernetes service in that directory. We're gonna select edge. Any application tags that you have created previously, if you had multiple, they would all be listed here, and you can apply as many as you want. But we're just gonna keep it simple. So we're gonna say all objects matching edge will be distributed to all clusters matching edge. Now recall, in the previous video when we created the Amazon and Google cluster, we gave them a tag edge. Now as soon as I save this, our rules engine will run, and those applications will be distributed and deployed onto both the Amazon and the Google cluster. And we can see that happening here in real time. And we can see that Argo has already not only deployed them, but determined the health status in them. And so now those applications are both deployed. So here we have, under here you can see, here's the application. It's deployed to this cluster. Well, the application name is an application set name we determine. And here are the applications deployed. We have the guestbook UI and the guestbook deployment. And because they were tagged to the same, the clusters have the same tag, they were deployed to both places. So right here is a simple illustration of how simple multi-cloud networking can work. And in this case, a hybrid cloud. And it does demonstrate the platform's Kubernetes and cloud agnostic capabilities. So there's nothing in our software that is cloud provider specific. So we are 100% based. If you have Kubernetes, we can deploy your applications to them. And so what else can we look at? So here, if you wanted to look at the Argo UI, you could just simply click the Argo icon. Now, the original URL for it would have been the IP address I gave it for my node port, but because I'm running on a local network here, I created this override. I just simply clicked override and I changed the IP address to my local network. I left the port the same, And so I'll copy that password, and this will open the Argo UI for us. And from here, you can see, if you're so inclined, if you wanted to look within the Argo UI, you have all those capabilities here. Now, again, we abstract the Argo UI for almost all the capabilities that you're probably going to need to deploy applications. But in case you wanted to see how we do it, you can come in here and you can click on all the objects that get created. You can look at their live manifests. You can see here how we added all the repositories that we configured in the SaaS into Argo. So we take care of all the Argo configuration and management for you. And if I go back to my network, I can see I also have a Grafana icon here. Now I'll do another video on observability, but simply it's the same way. It's the same concept as Argo. I can click the icon, copy the password. I already have an override in there, and I will connect to that locally. Now what's cool about this is that we have a single instance of Grafana running in the hub cluster, talking or giving you visibility into all Prometheus servers running in every single cluster in the multi-cloud network that you form. So like, for example, I can look at the core DNS metrics here for any cluster in the application network, all from a single pane of glass. There's my Amazon, here's my Google, and I can do the same thing for ArgoCD, although the application that I deployed doesn't have too many stats, but you can see that I do get some sort of metrics. I have 2 clusters for ArgoCD's managing. There are 2 applications deployed from 1 repository, and so you could do that for all your different clusters as well. And so that's kind of a sneak peek into the observability capabilities, but hopefully you could see how simple it was to deploy those applications. In the next video, we will work on infrastructure as code.